Episode 7 review, The Force Awakens. After 10 years, the next film and the continuation of the Star Wars saga is here. Several have been anticipating the release of this film and the next ones to come. This film will tell a story after Return of the Jedi, with new characters, an original story, and absolutely no involvement from George Lucas. Many have already deemed this a success. Does this film live up to the hype it has gained? How does it compare to the original trilogy? Most importantly, how does it continue the saga we all know and begin in the newest trilogy? Let's find out.
Well, it's finally time. It's time for what this review series has been leading up to. Let me just go ahead and say that making this review has been one of the hardest things I have ever had to do so far. I watched this film, I had an opinion about this film, I rewatched this film, I had a new opinion of the film. Upon viewing it many times, things change viewing it. It's never the same thing. Also, there will be spoilers in this review, since that is what was requested. Now then, let's go ahead and check out the continuation of the Star Wars saga.
Let's begin with the characters, starting off with the new ones. Finn is awesome, cool, he's great, he's just amazing. He's one of the best new characters. The twist involving him not actually being the Jedi was interesting, because in all the promotional images and the posters and everything, he had the lightsaber, and almost everyone, myself included, believed this meant he would be the new Jedi of the film. He'd be force sensitive, and this basically spoiled the film. And guess what? There was a twist, and he wasn't the Jedi. He wasn't force sensitive. Rey was, and this was amazing. You know, this twist turned everything on its head and made you question, oh, what's going up next? Is this gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? And it was just amazing. That twist was great. In addition to this, he raises many questions about the new universe, such as the way the First Order works. He says that he was taken from his family at a young age as a young child and was forced into the First Order. This reminds people, myself included, of the Jedi in the prequels and prior to the rise of the Empire, where the Jedi would take children at a young age and put them in the temples to raise them as Jedi in this new lifestyle. I'm not sure if it was Abrams or one of the other writers taking a shot at the old canon that the Jedi were quote-unquote baby snatchers or what, but it's still very interesting. And in addition to this, it raises questions regarding how the First Order works. You know, are all the kids taken as children, or is it just few? Did this happen with the Empire, or was this a recent thing that happened? You know, how much has changed since the Empire to the First Order, and how much has remained the same? It's very interesting to think about. Along with these implications, Finn is a very refreshing new character, and he definitely doesn't feel like a copy of any of the older characters. Though, one complaint I have about him is that it is unclear whether he's the protagonist or not.
Another very likely candidate for the protagonist is Rey. Due to growing up on the desert planet of Jakku, Rey has learned how to scavenge and how to protect herself. She's a very tough character, and she continues the trend of having very strong female characters in Star Wars. She also has an attitude that is very similar to that of how Leia acted in Episode 4. One complaint I have when it comes to Rey, though, is that she seems a little overpowered at times. Her past is left a mystery by the end of the film, and that's a very good thing, because it leaves somewhere for her to go in the next films. She has a story to tell, and there's still something to do with her character. It's why I believe her to be the protagonist over Finn, because she has that mystery, that background, that backstory that needs to be explored. I'm very interested to see where she goes from here, what role she's going to play in the future films, and how she's going to continue to get stronger, because like I've said, she's already very overpowered, and she is one of the most powerful characters in the film. One of the most powerful characters in all of Star Wars, I'll even say, because of her raw potential. Also, a lot of fans think that she'll somehow be related to Luke or Han because she's so powerful, but personally, I think it would be better if she wasn't related to any of them, or better yet, if she wasn't related to any of the other characters. The universe is a huge place. The galaxy is enormous. There's the inner rim, the outer rim, there's all of this. And if you make all these characters related, it gets rid of that feeling. It makes the universe seem smaller than it really is.
Poe Dameron, the ace pilot of the Resistance. Poe is one of the snarkiest characters of the new trilogy so far, and he just sets the tone for the new trilogy. He sets the tone about how the comedy is going to be. The prequels and the Rich Trilogy, yeah, they had their share of comedy. They had their share of, comedic lines and whatnot. But Poe is so much different from these other characters, and his lines help deliver the message that this is a new trilogy, that this is a new series, that this is the new Star Wars, that this is not the prequels and this is not the original trilogy. It's the next generation. It's what's coming next. Because he has this line when he faces off against Kylo Ren in the beginning, where it's, do I talk first? Are you going to talk? Who's going to start? And that was very funny, because it's something we'd never seen before. He just sees Kylo Ren massacre this village. He sees Kylo Ren do all these things, and he still manages to be sarcastic. He's still, oh, you did all that? I don't care. I'm sarcastic. And that's amazing. It's lines like that that make me love him. And Poe Dameron, easily my favorite human member of the Resistance, and easily competitor for one of my top 5 favorite characters in all of this new film. He's amazing. Often, he's called the new Han Solo for the new trilogy, and to an extent, I guess that's true. I mean, him and Han are both ace pilots, but that's pretty much where the comparisons end, because Poe is definitely much more selfless than Han was. And if anyone is going to be compared to Han, I would say that Finn can be considered a new Han, simply because both Finn and Han in the first film of their trilogies are much more, I'm fighting for myself, I'm selfish, etc. Sure, they're for different reasons, but that comparison still exists. Poe Dameron is considered to be the best pilot in all of the Resistance, and perhaps even in the galaxy, and this definitely shows easily. I mean, he's able to fight off a super Star Destroyer. A super Star Destroyer!
A Super Star Destroyer!
While he's in a TIE Fighter on the run from the First Order. This is amazing. I mean, the scale of a Super Star Destroyer, it's huge, it's giant. It's not called a Super Star Destroyer for nothing. His relationship with Finn is amazing, totally organic, it's natural, and I love it. They're like best friends right off the bat, it's great. My only problem with that relationship is that it develops way too quickly. I mean, they become friends soon after they steal a TIE Fighter, and their escape from the First Order and how Poe survived the crash onto Jakku isn't really explored, and it feels like a cop-out when he magically gets back to Resistance. I mean, it's like, dude, what happened to you? I thought you were dead. Nah, man, I got fixed up, I hitched a ride back to Resistance, it's all good now. But how'd you survive? How'd you escape? I'll explain that later, man. Don't worry. Like, really. And this, in general, is one of the complaints I have with the film. That things happen with little backstory, with little explanation. I'm really hoping a lot of the questions I have, and you may have after watching The Force Awakens, are going to be answered in the next film, but I'm not holding my breath just in case.
One of the main selling points for this film was the fact that the original characters were all coming back. Well, I can't say they're all coming back. See, all the main characters except for Lando are in this film, because apparently nobody cares about Lando.
No, it's not that. There's just an unwritten rule that no two black people can coexist in the Star Wars universe.
You mean like how the Sith have the rule of 2? They have a rule of 1?
Oh, totally.
Well, it still would have been nice to have a name drop for Lando or something. He was a very important character, and I really liked him. Regardless, Han Solo, and especially, was one of the characters who people were most excited to see come back. Han is essentially the same character he was in the original trilogy, just older. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have development. He's changed a lot. He's very distant from the other old characters, and from the Rebellion, now known as the Resistance, as a whole. But he has such a good reason for this. Throughout the film, we see why he's so distant, and why he seems more like he was at the beginning of the original trilogy, rather than how he was at the end of the original trilogy. Sure, at first it seems like he's had some character regression, he's gone backwards, but after you watch the film, you learn why he's so distant, why he separated himself from everyone else. In the end, Han's heart of gold really shines through. He helps out when he's needed the most. And he reminds us why he's one of the most popular, one of the most well-loved characters in all of Star Wars.
Are you crying?
No, it's nothing. Forget about it. Keep going.
Leia and Luke are both in this film as well, though not as prominently as Han or Chewie. Leia is now a general and is called as such, and her main role is, of course, to be the general in charge of the Resistance and to motivate Han to bring back their son, Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, back to the light. Ultimately, her role is very small and isn't really that important to the main story. I mean, her role could have been fulfilled by anyone, and having Leia back, sure it's nice, but really she didn't play that much of an important piece to the plot. Luke is treated much more like a MacGuffin than an actual character. The whole time, he's treated as a goal. His map is a driving moment of the film, and I mean, we're given a reason as to why he disappeared, but honestly, he was only given like 2 minutes of screen time, and it's not very satisfying. On a side note, was I the only one hoping that he would say, "Hello there," when he took off his hood and turned to face Rey? Seriously. I mean, he was totally underused, and barely counts as being in the film at all. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the antagonists. Let's begin with the First Order. The First Order was described as what would happen if after World War II all the Nazis in Argentina regrouped and tried to form the Fourth Reich. Fun fact, plenty of Nazis fled to Argentina and South America after World War II. Anyway, the Nazi comparison works so well because if the Empire were Nazis, the First Order are super Nazis. When General Hux, the new general and high-ranking official of the New Order, is giving a speech about how today's the day the Republic will fall, and that the light has no chance, and that the Empire will rise through the First Order and all that stuff, it reminded me so much of a speech given by Amon Goeth during the film Schindler's List, which I highly recommend if anyone is interested in learning more about Nazis and the Holocaust. Anyway, if anyone has seen that film and knows what the scene I'm talking about, I'm sure you'll agree with me. The First Order steals babies and young children and indoctrinates them into the First Order, and have reprogramming and brainwashing for any stormtroopers that display any sort of independence and individuality. This opens up so many implications. I mean, is this a relatively new thing? Is it old? As previously mentioned, this would have been a great thing to explore, but ultimately, we only get a few lines of dialogue here and there, so it's not that great. The First Order also uses cloning as evidenced by a line of dialogue between General Hux and Kylo Ren, though conscription and brainwashing is the preferred method of the First Order. Another very underutilized character was Captain Phasma, who of course is the captain in charge of the Star Destroyer the First Order has, and she's very strict with the rules. She demands that all stormtroopers obey the rules and doesn't want them to remove their helmets unless given permission, presumably to prevent individuality and camaraderie amongst the stormtroopers. She appears in the beginning of the film to reprimand FN-2187, aka Finn, for not shooting the village on Jakku, and for removing his helmet without permission. She appears in the second half of the film to quote-unquote assist Finn and Solo in locating/damaging the shield generator on the Starkiller Base, where Finn and Solo make a reference to the trash compactor scene on the Death Star, leaving her fate unknown, though presumably she did survive the destruction of the base. We were told she was meant to be the Boba Fett of the new trilogy, and her small but awesome appearance definitely makes her a rival to Boba Fett, in my opinion, but she was very underutilized and very useless. Hopefully this is something rectified in the next movies.
Perhaps the true main antagonist of the film would be that of the new Sith, Kylo Ren.
But he's not a Sith. He's a Knight of Ren. There's a huge difference there.
The point I'm getting at is that Kylo Ren is the new powerful leader in the dark side of the Force. Or, at least we're told he's powerful in the Force. Because we never really see him do anything that impressive, other than read minds. A Force power that has never been seen before, and is really cool. Whenever he gets mad or his soldiers fail at something, Kylo Ren throws a tantrum and proceeds to destroy whatever is around him. This is our main villain? Seriously? But seriously though, what separates Kylo Ren from the other villains is the fact that he's shown to still have humanizing moments, and he hasn't fallen to the dark side entirely. This is especially apparent in the fact that under his mask, his appearance isn't disfigured like Vader, the Emperor, or Supreme Leader Snoke. He's still human, he still has light in him, even if he doesn't want to admit it. On one final note, I really have to say that I love his crossguard lightsaber. Make all the jokes you want, sure, it might look silly, but it is shown to be very effective, and there are so many different possibilities for the user to use. He knows how to use those blade edges very well, and he knows how to use them to his advantage.
Supreme Leader Snoke is the new leader of the First Order, and not much is known about him or his past. All we know about him is that he's a leader of the First Order and was the one that seduced Kylo Ren to the dark side. With this in mind, it's clear that he knows the power of the dark side, and is a potential dark side user, though that is yet to be seen. He's never physically seen, instead projects a giant hologram of himself when he needs to communicate with Hux or Kylo, unlike Palpatine, who preferred to let Vader deal with the various problems the Empire was facing. In addition to this, it's clear by looking at Snoke's face that he has been through some rough times, and that he has clearly been in various fights and knows how to handle himself, considering the fact he's still alive. There's very little we actually know about Snoke and how powerful he really is. Really quickly though, I want to talk about the Starkiller Base, the First Order's new super weapon. Sure, it's devastating and powerful, but how does it work? I mean, it absorbs the nearest sun's power to charge the weapon, but what happens once that sun is gone? Does it have a propulsion system to move the weaponized planet to a new star, or what? In addition to this, how was this created? Like, was it made into the planet? Why was that planet chosen? Why can't they use the core? Did they change the core, or would tapping into the planet's core destabilize the planet and blow it up, like what happened in the film? You know, it's questions like these that I wish would get answered. Some explanation would be greatly appreciated, but honestly, we get nothing, and we're just left with more questions. But hopefully it gets explained in the new expanded universe or in the new films. But I'm not gonna hold my breath for that.
Seeing as how this film is still in theaters as of this review, we unfortunately cannot go in depth with the pacing like we did with the other Star Wars film reviews. It is worth noting though that I feel the pacing is very good. It feels nice. There's a nice blend between action and exposition. Enough time is spent on each scene to give you a feeling of satisfaction. It never lingers too long on any one scene or any one character. Everything blends well together and it feels nice. The lightsaber duel at the end also is very well done. It lasts an adequate amount of time, not too long but not too short, and it gives you a good feel of how strong every character is. Hint, Rey is overpowered. But perhaps one of the reasons why the pacing is so good is because, in essence, this is Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope done again. Honestly speaking, you can take the main points of A New Hope, compare it to the main points of The Force Awakens, and they line up near identically. Several times in the film, you'll say, I've seen this somewhere before, and that somewhere was in A New Hope. This can potentially be seen as a problem that this film has, and a lot of people say that this film is basically a remake of A New Hope. I personally don't find this to be a problem, because it's a nice way to re-invite people into the series with something familiar. Another problem is the fact that, as previously mentioned, Rey is very overpowered. She takes down Kylo Ren despite having no training in using the Force and no training in lightsaber combat. Just the fact that she was able to use the Force to pull the lightsaber away from Kylo shows that she has some level of power that is far above Kylo's. This just leaves you to wonder, how the heck is Kylo Ren gonna possibly compare to her next time? In Episode 8, when they have a duel, how is Kylo gonna be able to compete with her? I mean, sure, Supreme Leader Snoke said, you're gonna finish your training, but at the same time, Rey is gonna be trained by Grand Master Luke of all people. It is hard to imagine how Kylo Ren is going to be able to beat Rey, or even keep up with Rey in the next film, when she's being trained by Luke and learning how to use her raw potential.
Quick thing, we don't know if Luke's a Grandmaster or not. Maybe he is, maybe he hasn't taken the title of Grandmaster, who knows? And it's a little annoying that there's no real explanation for how they got Anakin's lightsaber. I mean, when we were in the theaters and we saw this scene, I really yelled out, "Oh, come on!" when they said, "Oh, that's a great story for another time." It's just not that great that they don't explain anything.
One last note, sometimes the film relies a little too much on nostalgia. It's its own story, sure, and it carries the plot well, but there are some scenes that you're just, alright, that was just there for nostalgia's sake, we didn't really need that. It doesn't take up too much time, but when it's there, it's pretty apparent.
As is expected, John Williams' score for this film is outstanding, though in the first watch of the film, you may miss the music. There wasn't much music to stand out, though that may be due to the fact that we've only watched this film a couple times, and there wasn't much time to properly listen to the music and analyze it. Though the music that played during the duel between Rey and Kylo Ren was one piece that stood out the most, and was very amazing.
Overall, Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens is 10 out of 10. Even with the problems that we mentioned, and the fact that it can basically be seen as a new hope, it's still a very enjoyable film, is a great way to continue the saga, and could potentially be even a good way to bring people into the series. Heck, we'll go as far as to say that this is our new second favorite Star Wars film. It didn't manage to beat The Empire Strikes Back, but it is really good, and I believe that Episode 8 has the potential to become the greatest Star Wars film ever, after how Episode 7 has set things up. I have high hopes for the trilogy. Episode 7 ended pretty strong. Let's see where it picks up from here. So there you have it. Let us know what you thought of Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens.
Let us know what you thought about the duel between Rey and Kylo Ren, because honestly, I don't think he was beaten that easily, and I don't think she's that overpowered.
Nah, she's too strong. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you all next time.